Hi there, and thanks for joining. My name is Per, and today we talk about payload mapping at all quiet. How to transform an incoming payload to an all quiet incident using our required, reserved, and optional attributes to enrich an incident with all the information that your team needs. Now, before we look at the mapping, remember that all quiet can handle almost any HTTP request. As demonstrated before, you can simply take your integration's webhook URL and paste it into your browser. By hitting enter, I've sent a simple HTTP request that, as you can see, created an incident. However, most of the tools you will be using will be sending much richer data. So for a more realistic example, let's use a curl command to send a post request. You can simply test this command via your terminal. I've prepared a command that includes an alert name, a status, a description, a severity level, and even a graph URL. So let's trigger this command and see that a new incident was created in all quiet. We can use this command to have a more deeper look into our payload mapping and our attributes and how they work. To do that, select the payload in the payload mapping and look into it. As you can see, the JSON body includes all the attributes that we just described. Now, let's look at the payload mapping. First, we're gonna look at our required attributes. The first one is the status. It's kind of the on and off switch of your incidents. Every tool has its own vocabulary. One might send triggered, one might send firing for open incidents, and others say healthy if an incident is resolved. All quiet streamlines this complexity by requiring you to map these various terms to either open or resolved. This ensures our incident lifecycle remains consistent no matter where the data comes from. Now, let's look at the mapping for the status attribute and see how we can extract the JSON body alert status and map it to an open or quiet incident. As you can see right now, the mapping is pretty simple. It simply says every incident is statically open. We can click on that mapping step and change the mapping type from static to JSON path. This will allow us to look at the latest payload that we just selected and extract the value of the attribute alert status, which is firing. Now, as you can see, firing, of course, is not open or resolved. So we need to map firing against open or resolved in a way that works for all quiet, right? So we can add a second mapping step, which is the type map. And now we can add mappings from firing, which is the input, to open or resolved. Well, of course, I want to map firing against open, but I might want to map healthy, what I just described, against resolved, because I know that an incident that is resolved will send a payload that includes healthy. I can even add a fallback. For example, I know that it will always be healthy if it's resolved, so if anything else is being sent, I want to make sure I receive an open payload to not miss anything and to create a new incident as a result. Saving this will also repair my incident preview here on the bottom of the page, and you can see that firing in this case is mapped to open. Now, the second required attribute in all quiet is severity. Severity is just like status, something that differs across different tools, right? Some call it P1 if it's very important and urgent. Other tools will call it critical or just simply emergency. In all quiet, these must be streamlined into 3 standards: minor, warning, or critical. Probably this is the most important part of your mapping because it in the end decides which incidents will be triggering which notification and escalation policies. So think wisely here. Now we have the reserved attributes that control incident logic but are not required. We still highly recommend them, and the names, like I said, are reserved. Let's start with the correlation ID. The correlation ID is kind of the unique fingerprint of an alert. It is used to identify and correlate incidents. If you send multiple payloads with the same correlation ID, All Quiet knows they belong together and won't create incident duplicates. So, if the same incident ID is sent for different payloads, we will rather update incidents, or for example, if a payload would include healthy in the alert status field, we would resolve the incident. Second, there's the title. This is the headline of your incident and the first thing people see. If you leave this blank, we will default it to the integration's name. Third, discard. This is pretty powerful and a good gatekeeper. By mapping a condition to discard and setting it to true, you tell All Quiet to ignore the payload entirely. So in this case, we say if the HTTP method, the request method, is head, we will discard the incident, and we will not discard it, meaning we will create the incident if it's a different method. To make your incidents more visual and organized, we provide optional keys on top, which you can see in these columns here. Grouping. Whenever you enable this, matching values for an attribute will group incidents into one and reduce noise. We will cover grouping in a different video. Hidden. By activating hidden, you can hide incident attributes on overviews in the app or the web app, or also in messages to tools like Slack. To give you an example, the graph is currently only a link. We might not want to have it on the preview, so we can simply set it as hidden, and then you can also see in the preview here that you don't see it on the incident overviews, but only in the details. Finally, you can add as many attributes as you like. So you could, for example, say, I want a new attribute called new attribute, and then you can set anything for this attribute based on the mapping types we just showed, like, for example, JSON path, or you could add a regex or simple static value and add further mapping steps. We already added a custom attribute called graph, and this is an attribute that we want to use to show you the third of our optional keys, image. The graph links to an image that we want to include in the incident. So if we know it's an image, we can just simply select image true, and you can already see in the preview that we have a graph that shows the load of our systems, which is really nice and which can be included in all quiet incidents. This is everything about the attributes in All Quiet. In the next video, we will have a deeper look into payload mapping. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to take a look at the other videos of our YouTube channel. Also, you might want to check out docs.allquiet.app for more helpful content.